Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kabbalah Café. Hey, Christina, it's good to see you. Hey, Merle, welcome. Good to see you. Toba, welcome. All right, folks, we got a lot to talk about today. We have a lot to talk about today, and part of that is about the notion of change. And I believe that change happens for most people when there's no other option. As long as there is the option to remain in the status quo, typically people will remain in the status quo. Most people. Some people are always reinventing themselves because they're motivated to change from the inside out. You have certain individuals, and I know some of these individuals that are always looking for something new, always looking to reinvent themselves, to change, to grow, like in a very intense way. And it's something that I believe might even be like an inherent inborn trait. But I would say that many people, maybe even most people, that's how I started. Maybe I'll walk that back. Certainly many people are motivated to change only when change is the only option. What I mean by that is like this. You know, people typically, many people, maybe most people, choose the path of least resistance, which means that will stay in maybe not the best space, whatever that is, right? Whatever that's, both there's a job, relationship, life, whatever it is, will stay in that space, even though we know that there might be something better, only because, or primarily because, it's easier to not change, to not overhaul everything. Human beings so often are driven by the path of least resistance. We avoid the path of most resistance. We avoid, doing things that are difficult, that are complicated, that involve upheaval. A few years ago, we brought out Dan Ariely. He's behavioral economics. He is an expert in human behavior. He's an Israeli guy. He teaches at Duke. Anyway, so he spoke about, he gave the example. He said, how do you motivate people to change? Sometimes you think that if you pass a law, for example, so then people are going to change. So when cell phones first came out and texting became a thing, more prevalent, so the government people noticed that it was leading to more accidents. So what's the intuitive thing that you do when people are texting while driving and it's causing accidents? Legislatively, what's the intuitive thing to do? You make it illegal. You ban texting while driving. You say, if you're caught texting while driving, so then it's going to be a fine of this, that, or the other. Okay. So what do people do? You think they stop texting? No. What do? Now they're texting under the steering wheel, which makes it even more dangerous. In other words, you got to think how people in the real world think. You want to think theoretically, great. Theoretically, if we said that it's illegal, everyone's going to stop. Shkoyach. Good. Doesn't always work like that. You make it illegal. Now everyone's still texting, and people are still texting, but they're texting down here, and they're not even looking. One thing to text over here, at least you're in the same general vicinity. You're looking down here when the road's up ahead. Hey, Dad, good morning. So that's not a great formula. If you are and when it comes to like fractions of a second of the ability to respond, that is not a great percentage. But he said something else in that talk, which was just a brilliant talk. He said also that he was consulting for for an insurance company, I think. And or maybe insurance companies, I don't know, something like that. And they were trying to motivate people to purchase generics instead of, what's the opposite of generics? The brand of the
Brand
medicine.
name.
Brand name. Okay. So so they were, why? Because look, it's less expensive for the insurance company. It's less, I guess, I don't know, something like this. I'm trying to put this together again. So, and it's going to be less expensive for the patient. You know, a lot of advantages of using these generic medications. So trying to figure out, how do you move people off of, people have their prescribed medication with their brand, the brand name, the brand, whatever. And so how do you move people off that? So one way is to send them a letter and say, hey, you can save, 70% switching to generic. Guess how many people respond to that? No one. No, I mean, maybe like a tiny fraction of people. So then they were thinking, well, maybe they should just send out a letter saying, we are automatically going to move you over to the generic unless you opt in to stay on the thing. But you can't do that. I think it's kind of like, you can't like move someone's medication unilaterally like that. So that wasn't an option. So honestly, this is going to be a very unfulfilling story because I don't remember how it ends. But his point was to say how you can dangle something very beneficial in front of somebody, and people will not necessarily do it. And it always comes down to one reason. It comes down to friction. It comes down to, well, I need to do something. I need to take a step. I need to send something back or make a phone call or opt in or do something. And honestly, I can't be bothered with that. Like, I can't be bothered by opting in and doing this and that, even though it's going to be great for me, even though it's going to be beneficial to me. You want me to change? Come on. You want me to change something? Not going to happen. Why? Path of least resistance. It's easier to stay where I am than to change. And human beings, very often, not always, but very often, we gravitate toward that which is easier, even though it may not be the best option. Can we relate to this? Yes. It's not a personal question, but it's kind of, I think we all on some level can relate to this. Again, you have some people that are always looking for something new, for change, always looking to reinvent themselves. You have individuals that are like that. But I think most people, or at least many people, they have this sense of, let me just do what I've been doing because that's what I'm familiar with. There's a famous Jewish parable, in Yiddish, we say that everybody has a pekala. Everyone has like a baggage, right? A suitcase, baggage, luggage, a carry-on, maybe a roller, whatever. Everyone has something. So they say there's like a famous old, I don't know, shtetl parable. If you took everybody from the town and you said, gather in the middle of the town and everyone take your baggage with you and put the baggage in the middle of the town square. And then you can choose whose baggage you want. Yeah. You can take anyone else's baggage. Everyone would choose their own baggage. Why? The baggage that I know. It's just easier. It's just easier. I'm gonna learn something new about my. Are you kidding me? I'm gonna learn something new about myself now at this point. Come on, not happening. Who has the energy for this, right? So I think by and large, we stay where we are and we stay in the spaces. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. We stay in the spaces that we are. Why? For the most part, because it's more convenient to stay where we are. It's less convenient to change. Oh, no. Don't sit on that. You can sit over here. You can grab. Yeah. Make yourself comfortable. No, that was a way too small of a chair. So, so look, we, by and large, people stay in their comfort zone, even when it doesn't make sense. When do we get out of our comfort zone? Very often, when do we finally get out of our comfort zone? When it's no longer possible to stay. When we're ejected from our seat is when, okay, I guess I'll get up now. It's like when the status quo is literally no longer an option, that's when we will be forced to make that change because, well, I guess we've run out of options at this point. In recovery, we call this hitting rock bottom. What does that mean to hit rock bottom? It means that until rock bottom, I had a plan. I had a possibility. I could have done this. I still, the status quo still might work. Maybe I can still figure it out. Give me one more day. Give me one more week. Give me one more chance. What does it mean to hit rock bottom? To hit rock bottom means that I recognize that there is no status quo anymore. Like that's no longer an option. It's no longer a reality. It's no longer a possibility. I can't anymore. And so I'm forced into change. What I'm trying to say is many people, I would argue most people, but I might be wrong because I haven't done the studies. Definitely many people will only change when there's literally no other option. I'm going to give you a Jewish context of this. I brought passion tea. I figured we should be excited this morning. All right, it's Kabbalah. We should be passionate about Kabbalah. Yeah, I can see by that glazed over expression. Yeah.
Respect what you just said. The Jewish example in this table. The lady just walked in here, and I said to her, "The last bagel is yours," and she said, "Thank you." That's okay. But then I said, "If you don't take it, I will." And she went out and took breakfast.
Right. Thank you, Jack. Exactly. Look, there is this teaching from the Talmud that says the following: that someone who says echte va'ashav, someone who says I will sin and then I will, say I'm sorry, do tshuva, ein maspikim liado or biado lasot tshuva. They're not given the opportunity to do tshuva, to repent. It's interesting, right? So let me just say that in English. Someone who says, I'll sin, and then I'll come back, I'll do tshuva, I'll fix it. They're not given the opportunity to fix it. So now you study this and you're thinking, well, why not? Is it a cosmic punishment? It's like, oh, you're messing with the whole system. You can't say that you can't go in with the intention that you're going to sin and then come back. We're not going to let you come back. Is it a punishment? Is it like a fine? Is it like some sort of cosmic, cosmic fine? There's a psychological explanation to it as well. Someone who in the moment of sin says, I'm going to repent, means that they're not so sinful in their own mind. Why? Because even as they're sinning, they have pangs of their conscience, which means that in their own head, they're actually good still. In the moment of sin, I'm still a good person. Look, I'm feeling guilty about it to the point that I know I'm going to come, which means that in their own head, even with this sin, they haven't hit rock bottom. You with me on this? You'll only rebound if you feel like that was a problem. But the very fact that you told yourself, B'shas hachet, at the time of the sin, I'll do tshuva, I'll come back, means that even when you did it, you weren't all in. If you're not all in, you can't get all out. If you take the bounciest ball in the world, I remember I went to Canton, Ohio. Anybody know what's in Canton, Ohio? The the Football Hall of Fame is in Canton, Ohio. As a kid, growing up in Pittsburgh, so took a road trip one day to Canton, Ohio. We visited the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I saw all the Steelers greats, Mean Joe Green, right? Jack Lambert, Terry Bradshaw. You could also see him on the pregame show. And
Franco Harrison.
Yeah, absolutely. Franco Harris, the Immaculate Reception. Not to be confused with the other thing. That was immaculate. Anyway, so Frank, by the way, the Pittsburgh airport If you land in PIT,
Very bumpy.
you're saying Pittsburgh Airport is bumpy? Oh, yeah. But in addition to that, in the airport is a statue of Franco Harris scooping up the ball. I don't know how, like somehow in that, the Immaculate Reception. Anyway, for those that are not football fans, you're probably wondering, what am I talking about? It doesn't actually matter. But here's one anecdote. I recall this. I don't remember if this is correct or not, but my recollection from when I was a kid, maybe 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, I don't even know how old I was that the name Super Bowl came from one of the executives, either owners or, I don't know, general managers or some league official whose daughter had a Super Bowl. Remember the Super Bowl, the bouncy ball? And it's like, oh, we'll call it the Super Bowl. That's my recollection. Someone can Google that and fact check that. I haven't really thought about that since. That is my recollection. Again, if you pull out your phone now, I won't be offended because I'll understand that it's a fact check. Anyway, the point is, you take the bounciest ball in the world, even the Super Bowl, Super Bowl, right? And you drop it into a very fluffy, I don't know, blanket, quilt, duvet. I don't know the difference between these, I'll be honest. I'm just throwing out terms at this point, but a very soft, right? Very soft thing. You drop it in, a pile of feathers. What's going to happen? It's not going to bounce. Why? In order to bounce, you need to hit something hard. You need to hit something hard. If you don't hit something hard, if it's all fluffy, if things are still, did anybody fact check this? If it's not, now I'm very curious. Please. So if you hit something fluffy, as long as it's too soft, as long as everything's okay, as long as what do you mean? I'm not a bad person. Even when I did the thing that I shouldn't be doing, I felt bad about it. So how bad could I be if I felt bad while doing the bad thing? In other words, I'm not like a monster. A monster wouldn't feel bad. I felt bad. I said, Echtav Ashuv, that I'm going to say I'm sorry. So how bad could it have been if I know right from wrong, even when I'm doing something wrong? Like, I know I'm apologizing even while I'm doing it. So then how bad is it? If that's the case, you just dropped the Super Bowl in a pile of fluff. It's not only premeditated, it's that I have, oh, I'm right. Thank you, David. Lamar Hunt, KC, Kansas City, correct? Yeah. Look, yeah, Lamar Hunt's daughter had a bouncy ball. All right, there you have it. So, who would have thought? Is that correct? You're fact checking it now? Kansas, was he a Kansas City owner? Yeah.
Yes.
No, it was Pete Rozelle, and it was Pete Rozelle's son who came up with the name based on the Super Bowl toy.
So now we have a machlokas. Now we have a dispute between two sources, either Lamar Hunt or Pete Rozelle. You're saying ChatGPT, Google versus ChatGPT. Now we have. All right. Anyway,
Yeah,
bottom line.
I'm basing mine on the sayings of Gemini.
Gemini. Oh, interesting. So AI, it's very interesting. Maybe this is Google versus Google. Google search versus Google AI. All right. Basically, the internet has to sort itself out. But in the meantime, we're going to say this. If you are convincing yourself that what you're doing, you, when I'm speaking to you, me, if I'm convincing myself that what I'm doing is not so bad, not so bad, not so terrible, so guess what? I'm not going to be motivated to change. Why? Because it's not so terrible. So if I say Echtav Ashuv, I'll do this thing and then I'll change. I'm never going to change. Why? Because I don't feel bad about what I did. Why? Because psychologically, even when I did the wrong thing, I felt guilty about it. The guilt itself is self-healing. It's soothing. So if I'm soothed, I'm basically dropping, right? I'm dropping the bouncy ball into a pile of feathers. And therefore, it's never going to bounce. There's not going to be any change. If somebody says, I'll sin and repent, they're not given the chance, is not some sort of cosmic punishment. Like we sometimes think God hardened Pharaoh's heart. You're never going to have a chance to be able to do it. It's not a cosmic punishment. No more than God hardening Pharaoh's heart was a punishment. According to the commentaries, it's all psychological. It's all the psychology of addiction. You train yourself in a certain behavior, and you double down, and you double down, and you double down, and everything starts falling apart. You know what human behavior says? You're going to do it again. You know who knows this? Las Vegas, Nevada knows this. Vegas knows this. Vegas knows that when you get into a hole, you don't stop. You keep on digging. That's human psychology. You say, that's crazy. You're down already $1,000. Why would you keep on going? Because one more time, I can get out of it. Don't you know? All I need is one more shot, and I'll get out of it. Pharaoh says, one more time, I'm going to beat this guy. One more plague. Doesn't matter. One more time, you're not going. I'm going to hold on. It falls apart again. I'm going to hold on. Falls apart again. Is it a punishment? Is it a cosmic? Right. God hardened. What's that called? That machine. Slot machine. God hardened the one-armed bandit, the prolific one-armed bandit player's heart. God did not harden anyone's heart. Oh, you're talking, God created human nature. That is correct. So maybe you could say God hardened Pharaoh's heart, but not in the way that we think it is. Not like God came in, swooped in and said, you're not going to let them go. I still have more in store for you. That's not what happened. It's not what happened. God doesn't take away free choice, but he does make it difficult sometimes. Not he makes it difficult, but human beings make it difficult upon themselves with repeated behavior. And the worse things get, the more we try to hold on to the status quo until it's impossible. When Pharaoh is facing his own death because he was a firstborn, everyone's dying around him, and he knows he's going to die imminently. Guess what he says? Now you can go. Why the change of heart? Why the change of heart? Pharaoh, I thought everything was cool. Yeah, but at a certain point, you do hit rock bottom. And when you do hit rock bottom, at that point, there's nothing left to do but say, I got to change. I got to change. Yeah, it would be nice if you didn't have to hit rock bottom for change. And today we'll talk about that. How to not have to hit rock bottom to change. I'll ask you a question. What's better, to change without hitting rock bottom or to have to wait for that, right? Would we say option A? Yes. I'm hoping that's a unanimous response. So today we're going to talk about that. But again, I think this idea that when somebody says, I'll do the wrong thing, but don't worry, I'll apologize afterwards. They're not going to apologize. They're not going to sincerely change. Maybe they'll apologize. Apologies are easy, right? Just type into AI, craft a sincere apology that feels very heartfelt, not written by AI. Just write that, not the second, and you'll get a wonderful thing that you can send out. I always wonder the people that at today, when people get caught up in stuff, when they send out like apologies that sound like, I'm so sorry you were offended. Like, come on, you can't use AI? Like, seriously, how hard is this? Now, I know AI is just a replacement for having to pay someone a few years ago, like a PR person, but like at this point, we all should be able to craft apologies. That's not the point, to be able to craft an apology. The point is to really change. And to really change requires to really feel bad. And to really feel bad requires almost, like in this context, that you really went all in. Because if you didn't go all in, if when you went in on the negative, you were like 1 foot out of the negative, then you're never going to feel like you have anything to really bounce back from. Because what do you mean? I always felt connected. I didn't really do something wrong. I mean, I did, but I knew it was wrong. So therefore, how wrong was it? That's the psychology. That's the psychology of sin that gets us stuck in sin. That prevents us from getting out because we've justified ourselves. Yes? Make sense? All right. Where does this leave us? Okay. This leaves us with a situation where we know there's a better price for our prescriptions, but we just can't muster the energy to actually change. By the way, this is not sponsored by Pfizer, white label, whatever the generics are. This is not at all about, pharmaceuticals. Hey, Natan, good to see you. Welcome. You manifest from the screen into reality. That's amazing. Are we out of chairs? Oh, there's one more. Natan, one more. A chair with your name on it, if you look very closely and write it. Okay, so here we go. So where does this leave us? This leaves us with a bit of a conundrum, which is that, look, a person might say, yeah, change, whatever, I don't need change. My life is fine, it's great. What are we talking about even change? I don't need to change. I know some people that need to change. I don't need to change. Fine. Now, if that's the case, great. So listen for the other people. Now you're going to be listening for the other people, like what they should do. That's fine. Now you know what to tell them. Good. If this applies to you, you're like, yeah, there are things in my life that I want to improve, that I want to change, but I kind of know what they are, but I find it hard to actually do it because I have all of these excuses and all of this inertia and all of this, the friction that gets in the way of me doing the change. And it would be great to learn tools to be able to kind of get over that or get past that friction. Great. Then this is for you. So either it's for you or for someone that you know. I'll tell you a story about this. Someone that you know was a joke, followed by chuckles, but it's fine. They're chuckling on the inside. Reminds me of a story of a person that came to his Rebbe. This is, I don't know, back in the old country. And he says to the Rebbe, I think it might have been like the fourth or fifth of the Chabad Rebbes. He says, I have a question about a struggle, like how to fix a certain problem, and I'm asking for a friend. So the Rebbe replies, he says, why didn't your friend come and say that he's asking for a friend? Hey, your friend could have come and said he's asking for a friend. Aha. You know what they say, busted. Anyway, here's the point. Whether it's for us or for someone else or for a rainy day, you can put it in a drawer. If you need to pull it out, pull it out. There's two ways that change happens. One is change that happens in a way, like I said, about hitting rock bottom. In other words, where there's really no other option. And another way is to self-induce the change. Like I wrote in the email last night, people have epiphanies. And by the way, it's not only about bad things happening. It could be about good things happening. It could be like, holding your child in your arms for the first time and being like blown away and being like just filled with such an incredible joy and love and awe and whatever it is that you realize at that moment that your priorities in life have just shifted. Just in this moment, the things that I thought to be true maybe are not so true, and the things that I have never thought about, they are true. Things change, right? Or holding a grandchild in your arms, right, for the first time, and just seeing the beauty and the innocence, and it's like, you know what? I got clarity. It's a moment of clarity. Now, not all moments of clarity last, but really the question that I want to address now is: do we have to wait for those things to happen to us, or can we self-generate? Does it have to be like something big that happens, like I don't know, birth of a child or grandchild, or a trip to the Grand Canyon, or God forbid, a loss or something, disaster to shake us up? We might ask this if we ask this on a national Jewish level, I don't know if that's the right phrase, but like on a larger Jewish people level, does it take on October 7th to bring us together? And why? Why would it? Why would it take something like that to bring us together? I mean, we all know what was happening in Israel before October 7th. right? Just the incredible amount of internal conflict. And for what? Somebody wanted to put up a mechitza. They didn't want a mechitza. They want it up. They want it down. That's what we're going to fight. We're going to fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the world's population, and we're still saying, oh, let's create another divide between us, because we're not fractioned enough. We're going to create one more divide. It's like the joke about the different chassidim, right? It's like there's a couple that want to get married. The shidduch is broken up. Why? Because that chassidus wears white socks and that one wears black socks. You kidding me? Like that? It's like, so does it take something radical like that to kind of like wake everyone up? Does it take hitting something hard or something hard hitting us to wake us up? Why?
So it's clarity.
You get clarity. The question is, do we need to wait for something dramatic, whether positive or God forbid the opposite, to wake us up? Can we wake ourselves up? That's the core question today. Right? What did I write? The email was called Epiphanies On Demand. Epiphanies On Demand. Can we create our own epiphanies or epiphany? Can we create our own wake-up call, or must we wait for a wake-up call to happen to us? You know, anecdotally, we just entered into the month of Adar, the Jewish month, the Hebrew month of Adar.
When?
Yesterday was Aleph, Rosh Chodesh.
So we're inside of them.
We're inside Adar. Today is Bet. Today is number 2, second day of Adar. And we know, the Talmud tells us, Mishenichnas Adar, Marbim B'Simcha. When Adar enters, in other words, when we enter the month of Adar, we're meant to increase in our Simcha. How do you translate Simcha? Joy, happiness. But, as I've expressed many times in many classes, and I think many of you have heard me say this, there's a fundamental difference between what we might call in English happiness and what Simcha really means. Happiness is milashon, comes from the expression hap, like happenstance, or haphazard, or hapless. And hap always indicates something that just happens, almost unpredictable, almost by chance. Happenstance, right? Which means that for many of us, we say, what is going to bring us happiness? If this happens to us, then we'll be happy. If I get the job, get the relationship, get the house, get the this, get the that, get the money, then I'll be happy. And Judaism says something else. That's not happiness. I mean, that might be happiness, but that's not simcha. Mishenichnas adar marbim bisimcha, same letters as machshava. Machshava means thought. Meaning, the key to joy. Let's differentiate between happiness and joy, even though in English, I don't know, it might be semantics, but just I want to use a different word. The key to joy in Judaism, now from a Jewish perspective, is recognizing that joy, right, differentiating, comes from within. Simcha, or being in a state of bisimcha, is the product not of what happens to us. You know, if this happens, then I'll be, if I get that thing, if, then. It's not an if and then. It's not if, then that. If, then, if this, then that. You know that software? Anyway, it's not if this, then that. What is it? It's a choice that I'm going to make. I'm making a choice to look at my life, to look at my circumstances, and be besimcha. It's a choice. It's a conscious choice. It's a perspective. Life will always tell us, people around us will always tell us, people, especially people that want to sell us something, that if you want to be happy, you have to purchase this thing. You have to get that. You have to acquire that thing, right? And if you get it and you're still not happy, because you didn't get the accessory. Oh my gosh. How can you be happy with the item if you didn't also get the attached item? And then you get and then they string it out to the point that when you get all of the items, they'll say, oh, because it's last year's model. Like, but I was following your timeline. Yeah, but now we're in a new cycle, new product cycle, obviously. Oh, you're wearing the fashion of fall 2025. We've already released the winter line. What? It's March of 2020. Look, what is happening here? This is the way the world works. The world will always say, Madison Avenue, marketing, whatever, will always tell you that your happiness lies just ahead in something that you can only get if you give us your money. If you give us your money, you will be able to attain that, and that will bring you happiness. Like one of our favorite local companies says, open happiness, right? This is going to get you happiness because look, everyone holding this beverage is obviously smiling and very happy and having a party, right? I love that jingle back in the day. Man, I used to listen to hockey games in Pittsburgh. Mike Lang just passed away, the voice of the Penguins. You guys don't know about this stuff. Anyway, look up Mike Lang. This guy was incredible. Huh? I grew up listening to hockey. I fell asleep listening to hockey games as a kid. What do you mean? I had no Braves. I was in Pittsburgh, not Atlanta. Oh, he's saying, why am I mentioning hockey in Atlanta? Oh, it's fine. By the way, I recently went to a Gladiators game. You guys know about the Gladiators? You were at a Gladiators game? Do you know what I realized? I went to an Atlanta in Gwinnett or Duluth. They have the Duluth, the gas South. Gaslight Arena. Gaslight Arena is, oh, this is the NHL. What, you don't realize it? What, you don't think it's the NHL? That's called getting gaslit. But no, Gas South is the name of the arena. I went to the Atlanta Gladiators. They came back at the end of the game. Fantastic. I got my kids' seats, $20, like 4 rows from the glass. They went down by the end of the game. They went down there, bang on the glass. It was incredible. It was a lot of fun. And it turns out that if you buy 50 tickets, a group of 50, you get the national anthem. And I'm like, what? Yeah, you get to sing the national anthem. I'm like, guys, hold on. We have almost, we're getting close here. We should do this, right? We should do this just for the sake of having the national. Now, it's interesting because on the website, there's actually a dispute on the website. On one place on the Gladiators website, it says you have to buy 75 tickets. But another place says 50 tickets. I'm assuming that they're saying we'll take 50 and we'll still give it away. But anyway, if anybody wants to, let me know. If anyone has a good voice. Toronto Maple Leafs. You're saying in general? Yeah, of course, when they played the Penguins. Absolutely. Speaking of which, next weekend, this coming weekend, I'll be up in Toronto. Speaking of Toronto, my son is in yeshiva there. They're having a father-son weekend. Oh, I should probably announce now, Kabbalah Café next week. I know, we're not going to have Kabbalah Café. I'll be in Toronto or en route from Toronto. So there you have it. Toronto. There is no second T in Toronto. Although I go, I'm like a little bit more machmir. I'm a little bit more frum and strict with that. I don't pronounce either the first T. I go Orano. We're going to Orano. Fine. All right. Back to the story. Now, honestly, we've spun so many different spools here that we have to now reel it back, trying to remember where we're up to. All right. Who can remember? What were we talking about? We were talking about joy, marketing. Well, no, we were past change. I mean, we're still in change. Buy that will make you happy. How to get to hockey? Oh, I know how. The jingle. Open happiness. Good. All right. We're back. And we're back. Good. Listen, this was a commercial. We had multiple companies mentioned, right? Good. But we're back. So here's the point. The point of all this is that the world will tell you, by people who want to take your money, that if you want to be happy, you'll need this. Judaism tells you, no, you don't need to spend any money to be happy. Happiness is a state of mind. How much does a state of mind cost? Nothing. State of minds are for the low price of internal work. That's it. That's all it costs. All it costs is to begin. I'm not trying to minimize the work, to begin to see your life as blessed. If you see your life as blessed, you will be the wealthiest person in the world. You'll be the happiest person in the world. Gratitude, seeing your blessings, just living in that state is what it means to live besimcha. Machshava, it's about how you think. It's not about what you have. Pirkei Avot says, Ezehu ashir hasameach b'chelko. Who is rich? The one who is happy with his or her lot. It doesn't say who is happy, the one who's rich. They're the other way around. Who is rich? The one who is sameach b'chelko, the one who's happy with his or her lot. The key is being in a state of besimcha, which is a state of machshava, a state of thought, a state of mind. Now, I know for some people, it comes easier than others. Some people are more half glass full, and some people are half glass empty, right? Somebody told me recently that they have a third position. They heard from their parents that it's not half full or half empty. It's my glass is double the size. Isn't that beautiful?
It's not half full, half empty. Why is the glass so big?
Right. But no, this is a way of not a problem. This is like amazing. My glass is so large. Thank God I have such a big, thank God I have such a big glass that my incredible blessing is still only half. Can you imagine? Unbelievable. I have such a beautiful vessel. I have blessings. I have a vessel. It's fantastic. Right? Look at this. I brought a cup today. My cup is like twice the size as your cups. I bought it because I thought I was going to. Anyway, the point is, listen. We call this a happy holidays cup. Mind you, this is a holiday. This is one second. I see what you're saying. We'll put a little Star of David on top and we'll call it a day. Yeah.
I don't know if it's something really happening. You know, I don't say, I woke up, I'm reading, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And I say, I wish I had that mentality.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with being a cashier and by her. But as Jews, we wouldn't, but like we wouldn't necessarily have that mentality. We want to.
I think like this. I think it's a balance of both. I think that it's important to say that I'm blessed. In fact, if we look at the Siddur, if we look at the prayer book, right? In the morning prayers, we have probably 20 pages that the entire theme is, how blessed am I? Unbelievable. I am so blessed. I'm blessed with the ability to wake up, to open my eyes, to stand up, to walk, to speak, to think, right? I'm blessed with the ability to enjoy a beautiful world, page after page after page, talking about the beauty of our world, created by God for us to enjoy. And so I think that it's actually very important. And maybe it's a little neglected. And to your point, I think maybe you're right, that in the kind of the Jewish ethos of, the joke of the mother walking her two kids down the street and someone says, how old are your kids? And she says, the doctor is 6, the lawyer is 4, right? That joke. Maybe we lose the other Jewish ethos. I mean, that was always a joke, but also serious, but also a joke. But what really is legit is the Jewish value of gratitude. And I think maybe that's what has to be reemphasized, because the other way is great. Yes. Drive and questioning and pushing and striving and all that stuff is great. It's always good to push and strive, and we want to push ourselves. We want to push our kids, but at the same time, I think there's something powerful about the idea of being able to appreciate the blessings that we have. And I know this may sound in contradiction to how we started today's conversation, which is about the dangers of the status quo. So now, what am I suggesting? That we should accept the status quo and have gratitude, or we should always be looking for change? You know what the answer is? Both.
I'm
Both.
always so jealous when they say the blessed, because I'm a fraction about my being in the office, because I'm gonna be in there a whole day now, as opposed to work from home, and they just always say they're so blessed. It's so
Right.
wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
You know, it's just,
I think that it's important to for all of us to adopt, at least to integrate that element of gratitude and the feeling of being blessed. The reason why I mentioned the idea of joy is because I think it's so important to recognize this idea that the world is always going to try to tell you that you need something else, that you don't have, that you're less than, and that you'll be complete if you have X, Y, or Z, that you'll be whole if you have this, that you'll be happy if you have this. And the Jewish notion is, one second, you're blessed because you're here, right? You're blessed because you woke up today, because God has chosen you to be part of the plan of the day. That's amazing. That is the greatest vote of confidence in the world. You don't need anyone else patting you on the back. The fact that you and I woke up today means that God says, you're in the game. You're in the game. It's like you made the roster. You made the cut. Right. NFL team. Training camp. They have to whittle it down to whatever, 50, whatever. At some point, they have to whittle it down to the roster. You made the cut. You're on the roster. Does it get any better than that? You got playing time. We all got playing time. We're all here. We're all moving around. This is great. You know how many people aren't around right now? It's a lot. Many more people aren't around than are around. You and I are here. There's nothing greater. What, you need a tchotchke to make you happy?
No.
Oh, I only have the iPhone 16. I don't have the 17. I don't think the 17's out yet, is it? That's on pre-order. I already have it. Kidding. But like, it's like, I only have this one. I don't have that one. Therefore, I can't be happy. Or I look at someone else, what someone else has. I'm jealous of someone else. Someone else has this. I can't be happy with my own stuff because look what someone else has. Look what someone else has. I can't be happy because of what someone else has. First of all, who cares? Second of all, good for them. Third of all, this is not necessarily in the correct order, but whatever. Third of all, I don't even know what else to say. Like, they're living their life, I'm living my life. What is the problem that someone else has something? Makes no sense. Someone else has something. I can't live. I can't forgive someone else having something else. Yiddish is great, right? You can even understand that in context. I can't live. I can't be okay with someone else being okay. They have to be not okay for me to be okay. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. I have to be like the early adopter to say I have the bigger cup. I mean, that's not a thing. This was not about the bigger cup. This somehow spiraled into that. But anyway, the point is that it's all about having a sense of appreciation for what we have, coupled with the striving for something more. So bring it back to our conversation. Here's the way this looks. So everybody has things in their lives that are going well and things that are not going so well. There's things that can be a little bit better, whether it's within ourselves, whether it's in our relationships, wherever it is. And one way is to allow things to keep on going until there's no other option. And now we got to do something about it, right? It's like a leak in your house. It's like, it's leaking, but it's like, fine, whatever. What, you've never heard of a bucket before? You put a bucket under there, catches the leak. Huh? No, God's rain, as God intended. Here we go. I got a cup to catch it. It's not a great idea. It's not a great idea. I was almost going to call you the other day. I parked my car and it started leaking from under the car. I spoke with Sam about this last week. She's like, oh, you should call me Dad. I figured I wouldn't bother you. My radiator was leaking. Oh, Natan helped me. Thank you, Natan, by the way. Yasher koach. My rate just leaking. I had to replace it. I could have driven in and be like, oh, it's just a little leak. You know what happens? I found out. Not because I did it, but because I, have friends and look this up. You know what happens if you drive without coolant? You know what happens? There you go. And then, well, then you have to do something about it. If you have no motor, if you have no engine, well, then you have to do something. So you could do it earlier and, fix it, or you can do it when you have no other option. The question is, where do you draw that line of I have no other option? That's really the question. Do you wait until there's you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We all draw, do you draw the line when it's like disaster? Or do you go and pull the line back and say, you know what, this is already this I already have to change. It's all a line that, by the way, for those wondering, replaced the radiator. It's driving fine, thank God. Anyway, back to the story. Here's the deal. There are ways, and we're going to learn today some meditations, that we can think about our lives in a way to induce and to motivate us to change, where something, God forbid, bad doesn't have to happen to us, where we don't have to wait for something good to happen to us either, where we can say, today, I want to change something about myself. So here's what I'm going to think about. Now, I'm going to think about the things that kind of induce change. I'm going to think about things that motivate me to change. So what am I going to think about? I'm going to think about the things in my life that are not perfect. Not the things that aren't happening to me that are perfect, but the things that the way that I'm showing up in an imperfect way. And because of that, I'm going to start thinking about how I need to change those things. And then I'm going to think about how, in the context of that change, how what I really want is to get close to my Creator, to get close to God in a way that is fundamentally different than the way I am currently. That is the meditation we're going to meditate. I don't know if it's meditation the way you think it's a meditation, but that is the conversation for today. So we're going to do for the last 10 minutes, we're going to read this inside. Please take and pass. And hopefully this will make sense given the intro. Look, we could wait for those moments, the big moments. We could wait for the birth of a child on a good sense. We could wait for, God forbid, I'm not even going to say that, finish the sentence. We could wait for things to happen to wake us up, or we can create our own wake-up call, right? A person can say, I'm not going to set an alarm. I'm going to wait until the rooster crows. I live in the city and there are no roosters. I'll wait. Maybe a rooster will happen. Oh, nice. All right. Look at that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how annoying is that?
Starts growing, like.
Oh man, I could, yeah. I don't know how I would feel about that, but here we are. Power of return PDF. Okay, let's pull this up. All right, we are on page, just for reference, we are on page number 78. We're going to start on 78. It's going to sound a little harsh, but hopefully this this preamble has set the stage for what we're doing here. Remember, what we want to do is not have to wait for life to, God forbid, give us negative things. We want to preemptively be able to, not only preemptively, that's too reactive. We want to proactively, there we go. We want to proactively induce change and the real growth from inside. So the header of this is taking personal inventory. Let's go. Similarly, he says, the soul is awakened to an unbounding yearning for God when a person crushes himself with subjugation and extreme self-lowliness, considering how he stands on the lowest of levels, persisting in such meditation until he becomes lowly and contemptible in his own eyes. I have to tell you, whoever translated this is really indulging in the translation because it sounds really bad and really crushing. But this is more, if I were to kind of reimagine this or imagine this as I do, it would be more along the lines of a person has the ability to not wait for life to cause upheaval, but to look inward and to say, 1 second, is my life where it needs to be? And if not, what are the changes that I need to do? This is especially true if one is a Mare de Chushbana, master of accounts, of the details of his thoughts, speech, and deeds. What he's suggesting here is a kind of self-auditing, where a person is kind of thinking about, what am I thinking about? What am I saying? What am I doing throughout my day? What have I thought, said, or done over the past years? And have these thoughts, words, and actions always been healthy? And if not, where do I need to change? Right? What do I need to do to change? How can I, become a better person? It's kind of like, a lot of this idea, a lot of these ideas, these themes are taken from the book of Tanya. I should mention we have a new Tanya series every Thursday, 7:30 to 8:30, taught by Rabbi Tzvi Freeman, who is currently writing a new translation of Tanya. It is an incredible series. For those that wish to jump in on it, you can jump in anytime, Thursdays, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. right here and on Zoom. Right here, meaning in that building over there. But just getting back to this point, it's very important to know the following. So in the book of Tanya, he talks about some of this stuff, some of this personal inventory, this kind of self-reflection. That's a very honest, and maybe even one would say brutally honest self. And the intention of the self-reflection is not to put ourselves down. On the contrary, it's in order to ultimately lift ourselves up. But in order to lift ourselves up, sometimes you have to hit a solid surface for the ball to bounce back, right? You got to hit a solid surface in order for the rebound to happen. In Tanya, he likens it to an idea of, what is that? Does he like, I don't know if he uses this analogy or if it's in my own head, but either way, imagine somebody would say, is a knife something that is a dangerous item? What would you say?
Depends on how it's used.
Oh, right. Is a knife dangerous or not? Depends. If you're using it to cut a birthday cake, it's great. If you use a surgery, use it to cut. Right. So is using a knife to cut open a human being, is that good or bad? Is that dangerous? We'll say, well, it depends. If you're a surgeon, fantastic. You're saving a life, right? If you're I don't know, if you're, yeah, then it's not good, right? Then it's not good.
He might have been a surgeon.
Who, Jack the Ripper? This I don't know. Is that real? Oh, I don't know enough about this.
Yes.
But anyway, the point is that it depends what it's used for. So a lot of what we're going to talk about right now for the next few minutes, a lot of these things could be very negative if it's happening to us in a very negative way. In other words, typically we should not look down upon ourselves. We should not judge ourselves in a negative fashion. That's not a healthy self-image. A healthy self-image, according to Judaism, according to Kabbalah, is not a negative self-image. Although he's talking about meditation to the point that one becomes lowly and contemptible in their own eyes, like, what kind of horrible self-image are we talking about here? Understand this. This is for the purpose of precision surgery. This is trying to cut out, to excise, to cut out a negative trait within ourselves, in order to create the possibility for personal change in this one area, in this context. We need to do something that otherwise is harsh and something that otherwise we shouldn't do, but we're doing for a specific purpose. So that's I think a very important framework for understanding what he's about to say. I'm going to start it's really the third paragraph, I guess, in 78 again, where he says, this is especially true. If one is a master of accounts of the details of his thought, speech, and deeds. Let's continue. He reflects upon the multitude of negative thoughts and musings that inundate him the entire day, and on the inappropriate thoughts that forever invade his mind. Similarly, concerning his speech, he contemplates his idle chatter, his words of frivolity and scoffing, and especially he ponders his deeds. even if he has not committed outright transgressions, God forbid, the repeated indulgence in permissible pleasures causes one to become coarse and carnal. Ultimately, his mind and heart become occluded, and he is no longer receptive to the revelation of godliness in his soul. That word occluded in the Hebrew is the word that is, who's got the Hebrew on that? 79? Mitamtem. All right, occluded, I don't know what occluded means, but mitamtem means blocked. Yeah, it means blocked. Tim to my left means a blockage of the heart. Means like, God forbid if the arteries are clogged. Yeah, this is like not the actual physical arteries that flow the blood, but the idea of a sensitive heart, a sensitive mind, being sensitive to sensitive things, like being blocked to that. Like, can't cry, can't feel, can't be empathetic, can't consider my own, spiritual sensitivity. Like, I'm blocked to that. So if a person recognizes the block, it's important to work on undoing the block. And how do you undo the block? Sometimes with a little bit of a knife. It takes a knife sometimes to open up something that's blocked, and that requires a little bit of self-evaluation. And just along these lines of how even not committing what we would call sin or transgression, but just indulgence in even permitted material pleasures causes a lack of spiritual sensitivity. So he brings a story from the Talmud. Our sages relate that when Rabbi Elazar ben Arach attempted to read the verse HaChodesh Hazel Lachem, this month will be for you, etc. It's the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh, the Jewish calendar. He mistakenly read from the Torah. He mistakenly read it as Hacheresh Haya Libam. Now in the Hebrew letters, it works incredibly. HaChodesh Hazel Lachem, Hacheresh Haya Libam. The Hebrew letters are very similar. What does Hacheresh Haya Libam mean? Have their hearts become deaf. What does that mean? It means that he's reading a verse from the Torah that talks about the new month, the new moon, the idea of the shining of the Levana, the shining of the moon, which means almost like openness and revelation and light. And instead of reading a verse that talks about light, he reads it as hearts becoming deaf, as becoming unaware of what's really going on. So how did it happen? So the Talmud says, through repeated indulgence in permissible pleasures, such as drinking the wine of Progita and bathing in the waters of the Yomset River, the heart becomes deaf and obstructed until one is completely unreceptive to the revelation of godliness. As a result, he falls to extremely low spiritual depths. This is a person, he's not telling us, the author's not telling us what's going on with us. It's more about giving us the tools to self-examine and think about our own lives. In other words, in this story in the Talmud, there was a rabbi, a sage, who was reading the Torah, and instead of reading the words HaChodesh Lechem, he utters the words HaCheresh Hayalibam. And it's not just he read the words wrong. It's he was reading, instead of words that evoked this idea of light shining, he's reading about a lack of sensitivity, a lack of shining. And he realized in his own head that he had become spiritually numb. He had become spiritually numb. And why was it? Because he was enjoying life. Now, there's no problem to enjoy life. The problem is when it comes at the cost of being able to enjoy spirituality, because sometimes the two are not always aligned. Sometimes it's almost like a seesaw. The more indulgent we are with the material things, the more indulgent and therefore the more excited and therefore the more sensitive we are to the material things, the less excited and the less sensitive we are to the spiritual things. Now, could a person have it all? Can I be excited about the physical things and excited about the spiritual things? Conceptually, it's possible. But if a person finds themselves having a spiritual block, Timtum Alev, the occlusion of heart and mind for spiritual matters, person finds themselves not being able to get excited about prayer. I'm reading the words, I don't feel it. I'm not excited about God. I don't feel gratitude for being alive. Like all the things we talked about before. I don't feel it. I hear it, I don't feel it. Well, then the question is, why don't I feel it? Why don't I feel it? And the answer might be too much Praguda wine and the Yomset River bathing. Apply it to 2025. whatever that is, right? That wine of Brigitte is off the charts. Kidding. It's like, do I even create space for the spiritual stuff? Or am I so into the physical stuff? I have no pleasure left. I have no sensitivity left. It's like, I'm so focused. I'm refreshing the page on the physical pleasures. I don't have time for the other stuff, for the spiritual stuff. Oh, I should have gratitude for God. In what context? Did you see what's his name posted? I'm reading it now. That was a joke, right? I have no time to think about God. I'm thinking about tweets. I'm thinking about TikTok. I'm thinking about whatever. I have no room left. I have no room left. Now, can't we have room for everything? Try it. Try it. I mean, that's great. Try. If it works, it works. But oftentimes we'll find ourselves neglecting things that are important because we're not sensitive to the things that are important, because we become sensitive to the things that are, frankly, not important. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, look inside. He's not telling any of us. This is a text, right? It's all about applying it for ourselves. If it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply. Then maybe it applies to someone you know. Okay, right? But save space. So, but this is for our own application. If we find ourselves being in a state of spiritual insensitivity, then this is a way to become a little bit more spiritual sensitive. How? By hitting bottom, but not actually hitting bottom, but by giving ourselves a wake-up call. 80. His fall could be so drastic that he reaches a point where he does not even possess a general feeling for godliness. I.e., not only does the godly light not illuminate him internally during Torah study or prayer, it is not even felt generally. He has absolutely no desire to study Torah, to serve God, or to sense godliness. That's the problem. When a person realizes the problem, now there can be a solution. Now, by making a detailed and honest accounting of his soul, his heart becomes broken and crushed. Oh, how did I get here? A person might say, how did I get to a place where I'm completely not motivated for anything spiritual? How did I get here? How did I get to that place? That's already a breakthrough. His extreme distance from godliness breaks his heart. And this in turn awakens his soul with an unbounded yearning for God, to escape the darkness of the physical body and the animal soul, and to be absorbed within the light of the blessed Ein Sof. This is the meaning of a quote from the Talmud. Only with a sense of earnestness, Koved Rosh, only with a sense of earnestness may one begin to pray, referring to the quality of surrender and humility, which is the idea of the Tikkun Chatzot, service, to humble oneself and to be a master of accounts, which means to have an honest vetting of self, to honestly look within and say, look, here are the things that are working, here are the things that are not working, and I need to change this. I don't need to wait for something dramatic to happen, God forbid. I don't need to wait for a cosmic or universal or divine wake-up call. I can proactively take some time in the evening to go through my day, to go through my life, and thus self-induce a wake-up call, self-induce this type of epiphany. Through this, one reaches in prayer the love of God with all your might, escaping the darkness of the physical body and being drawn to godliness to the extent the very essence of the soul is moved. And we stop here, the bottom of page number 80. All right, so what do we do today? What we did today is we talked about the notion of self-induced epiphanies. We talked about the power of the rebound, the power of hitting rock bottom, the power of recognizing that change is the only option because there's nothing left, right? The status quo is no longer tenable, right? I can't remain where I am because that's no longer an option, right? When we recognize that we are no longer, I forget what the words in recovery are, but when we recognize that we were powerless, whatever, then we turned ourselves over to God. Like when you realize that this is no longer an option, now the change becomes the only option. Well, here's the question. Can you and I do that on a daily basis or on a semi-daily basis? Do you have to wait for something to blow, God forbid, to blow up in order to do that? The answer is no. He says, you and I can do that right now if you choose. Just think about what's going on. Think about where you are. Think about what you've accomplished, what you haven't accomplished, where you're falling short, where you're excelling. Think about the areas in your life that are not exactly where you want it to be, and let that be your motivation to change them. Don't wait for something to actually fall apart, right? Don't wait for God to say, I have to pull out everything from under you to realize that you can't stay here, right? Like that song, Closing Time. You don't have to go home. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay. 1 second, but you can't stay here, right?
Scott has something to say.
Scott, go.
On joy and gratitude. The majority.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Most of the time.
And we don't want to dwell in the negative.
Most of the time.
So you didn't mention a timeline.
Mm.
Like you want to spend 24.
No, he said it. He said it. Tikkun chatzot. And I alluded to, thank you for asking. I alluded to it before. How often are you taking the knife to do surgery? Well, if you're a surgeon, maybe all day, but, right? Only in very highly specific contexts. You're not willy-nilly going around cutting things open. That's reckless.
So a daily practice.
Tikkun chatzot, he says. Tikkun chatzot. Tikkun chatzot, most people don't do. Tikkun chatzot is a prayer, a series of prayers that are recited at midnight.
Okay.
Okay? So some people do it. Some people. The very pious people do it. Most people don't do it and or are unaware of it even. The purpose of it is to take time when it's quiet outside and it's quiet inside. There are no distractions, to be able to think about where my life is, what I need to fix, what I need to change. That is the totality of the point of Tikkun Chatzot.
So daily.
To break, so the really pious people do it daily. I would suggest even once a month, even once a week, find a time. The key is it can't be when things are going on. You can't do this in a high traffic environment. Think of a surgery room. It's very controlled. It's very controlled. It's very contained. It's highly intentional. It's not just happening. If you start feeling down on yourself, right? You start feeling sad about things that are happening, or like I should have done this, I should have done it. You're second guessing yourself. Oh, well, maybe I'm doing this. That's not holy. That's the animal. So it's a negative inclination trying to bring you down. This is always done proactively. This is saying I'm going to set a time to think of I'm going to make an appointment with myself to think about these things. So to your very practical question, on a very practical level, I would say once a month, we do once a quarter. Look, we could do it once a year, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. We think about where our lives are and how our lives are and what needs to be changed. I mean, everyone knows that Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, that time of year is a time for this type of self-evaluation, or the month of Elul before the high holidays. That's the obvious time. But the more often the better, because why wait until once a year to do this?
So, sorry to keep cutting.
Yeah.
After you've done that, assuming you're doing midnight, I would probably assume then you should spend some moments in gratitude. Because
Correct.
You
You have to go from there to a space of joy. That's what he says. This leads, if done correctly, this leads not to pull you down. This leads to push you up. Say, look, these are the things that are not where they need to be. These are the things that I'm not doing correctly. I'm not motivated to change. I'm excited for the opportunity to change. Let's go. That's the arc of this. So the arc is not, God forbid, to pull us down into a negative space. It's to create almost that impetus to propel us forward. And it's all about the growth. It's all about moving forward. This is never about pulling us down. What would be the point of that? This is not about, some Kabbalistic text wagging its finger and saying, hey, you haven't been good. That's not that's not the context. And that's not even what he's saying. If you read it, it's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, if you find yourself stuck, if you find yourself in need of a jolt, why wait until life does that? God forbid. Who wants that? You want to be jolted by life? Jolt yourself. Jolt, just take time and jolt. God wants to give us opportunities for growth. Okay? Don't make God do it. That's never a good idea. Don't make God. God says, well, listen, now you need it. There's no other option. Now you need it. Don't wait for that.
Chris Rock.
Yeah.
us to find God before God finds him, but like, you end up in prison, God, but then you find God.
Right.
Find God before-
That's the point. That's exactly the point of today. Don't wait. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's great. No, but you quoted it. That's the point. Don't wait. Right? Don't wait till you hit rock bottom to find God right now. All right. So that's the message of today. Message of today is self-induced epiphany, self-induced change. That's the idea. Look, it's always easier to stay where we are. It's always easier to allow gravity to pull us, to allow inertia, to allow friction to get the better of us, to say, I'm not going to change. I'm going to change. Now I'm going to change. Today I'm going to change. I'll change tomorrow. Another day. I'll change when I have to change. Why wait till you have to change? Why wait? You know what they say, an ounce of prevention, it's better than a pound of cure. Thank you for joining me today for Kabbalah Café. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it made sense. Check your coolant levels. Ay, Gewalt. Dr. Maxey, Gina, Frank. Official match. I love Frank's shirt.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hey, I was going to mention about the recovery when you're, something actively in recovery, and when you make an amends in the eighth step, and then the ninth step, the cool thing is that like we're not allowed to say I'm sorry to the person. You can only say I'd like to make an amends for my bad behavior, whatever it might be. And the other thing is you can never say like I'd like to make an amends for me yelling at you, but if you didn't do this, then I wouldn't have, we're only allowed to say I'd like to make an amends for whatever I've done. How can I? And then you ask the final part is you say, and how can I make that right so that we can mend the relationship? And we never say sorry. It's really, really powerful.
Very powerful. Very powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
David, Tony, hey, who's this?
This is little Sailor. She's 11 months now. And this is the only time she's allowed to interact with a smartphone.
She is adorable. Oh my gosh. Wow. Lots of nachas. Wow. Enjoy. She is precious. Listen, she may be our youngest Kabbalist right now.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. Tony, great to see you. Oh, she's adorable. Enjoy. Caroline, Jackie, Roy, who's here? Lisa, Ellen, great to see you guys. Checking the chat now. Ready to repair. Yeah, Caroline. All right. Good stuff. All right. We'll see you all. Have a wonderful week. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.